All right. Good morning, everybody. My name is Rob Bao from FITLIGHT. I'm the Director of Sales, and today we're having another webinar. I think this is our fourth already. Today we're going to talk about FITLIGHT and physical therapy. And our today's guest is Lindsay. Welcome, Lindsay. Thank you very much for joining us.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much, Rob, for having me.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you. How are you?
I'm great. I'm very excited to do this.
Awesome.
I think we have people joining us from all over the world, at least 3 continents I saw, but I believe even 4. So that's great. Thank you, everybody, for taking the time to sit down and listen to what we have to say about FITLIGHT and about physical therapy and the combination of that. So today will be an easy guide for implementing our lights into your practice. And we're going to show some examples on how to use FITLIGHT, how to best program them, and for different fields of expertise, if you will. All right. So let's see. All right. So what is FITLIGHT? As we all know, for people that don't have a system yet, FITLIGHTs are lights like this that can be programmed any way you want with software that can be downloaded onto any Android or Apple device. The lights, they can come in a bag or in a case, as you see on your screen right now. The lights are very durable. They can withstand almost any type of force and can be programmed with all sorts of colors, timeout, delay, whatnot, but I'll talk a little bit about that after. All right, so what are some key features for FITLIGHT? As we've seen, they're very durable. Each light has a proximity sensor and an impact sensor. This can come in handy, and we'll show a little bit about that later. So when a light goes on, you have to deactivate it by either touching it or going past it. So there's a motion sensor, and not having to touch a light can be very important for certain protocols. Obviously, it's very interactive and engaging. When a light goes on, you want to deactivate it, and especially when you work with kids, you'll see that they'll love using the lights. It's user-friendly. The app can be downloaded onto your phone, such as an Android or an Apple, like an iPhone. And from the convenience of your phone, you can program the lights and start using them. With one device, you can have up to 8 users doing the same exercise at the same time, but still track individual data. Each light can be programmed with 2 rings of LEDs, different colors. There can be a beep, so you have different sensory approaches. It's very portable, comes in a bag or in a case. And I think we already said they're very durable. That's the most fun part of it. All right, so what does the software look like? Again, it's an app. It can be downloaded from the Android, Google Play Store, or the Apple Store. This is a quick overview of what the home screen looks like. And on top, you'll see the quick start. And the majority of the protocols that we're going to discuss today, you are able to do with already the quick start. Now, what does that look like? This is the home screen. You see different folders for different types of sports, for example. This is the quick start, where you can still modify, let's say, the time that you want to do, or if you want to do a run based on number of hits. You just scroll through up and down, and when you hit start, you'll start exercising. Like I said, the home screen also has different folders. There's also one for physical therapy, of course. And if you go through it, there's a little icon that shows you how to position the lights and a little description on what the exercise actually does. All right. However, today we're here to talk about physical therapy, and that's why we invited you, Lindsay. Thank you again for joining us on our 4th webinar. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, thank you so much again for having me. I've been using the lights in my practice for a number of years now. So anytime somebody asks me to speak about the lights, I'm really passionate about them, and I like to share them with a lot of my colleagues. So I'm really excited to be here. I started my career, I was a varsity athlete in university, and unfortunately I was injured. So I did spend a lot of time in physiotherapy as a patient, which kind of got me on that direction of pursuing physical therapy as a career. So I did my master's at University of Toronto. So if any Canadians are on here, say hi. And then after that, I started my profession in a local hospital for a number of years. And that hospital was actually the regional stroke center. So we had a lot of stroke rehab that we did there. I also worked in the ICU in emergency medicine. We were one of the first hospitals to pilot having a physical therapist in the emergency department, which was really cool. I also worked in pediatrics, cardiology there, acute care medicine. So we saw our neuro, but we also saw some of the like COPD, pulmonary, just general weakness, falls, as well as post-op. So your total knees and your total hips, your shoulder replacement. So I've kind of bounced around that whole hospital and got an opportunity to work with all populations, mostly adults. And then after that, I also did hydrotherapy with pediatrics working in the pool. And now I own my own practice, so Ready Set Physio, and I provide in-home therapy for pediatrics from newborns all the way up to age 18. And I also work at a local clinic with the same age group and same type of population. So I see anything from your newborn torticollis to gross motor delay to your athletes, general kind of sprains and strains, low back pain, teenagers, toe walkers. So I use the lights with all of those populations that I just described, and we'll see a couple ways that I do use them. But the big thing for me is that how engaging it is for children, especially to see the lights and how excited they get about using the lights and asking about the lights. So we'll definitely kind of get into that a little bit, but yeah, I'm just really excited to be here and share some ideas with you. And I'm sure that you guys watching some videos, you'll also come up with some ideas of things you're doing in your practice and how you can incorporate the lights into some of your exercises that you might have.
Well, that's great. And what a career you already have. Thank you again, obviously, for joining us. And people, obviously, if you have any questions throughout this webinar, feel free to ask a question in the chat or in the Q&A. We have our moderator today, Shawnee. Thank you very much also for making making us able to do this. She will answer any questions that can be answered already. If she can't, then we will try, if we have time, to answer your questions. If we do not have time, at the end of this webinar, there will be Q&A. But if there's no time, then we will answer those in an email blast that will be sent out to everybody that registered after this webinar. It will be probably within a week. Also, it's recorded. It will be put online within a week. So if you don't have time or if you have to leave for an appointment, no worries there. You can always look back at this on our YouTube channel. All right. So Lindsay, you already mentioned a lot of different types of patients that you see or that you have seen in your career. I think today we're going to discuss some of those. And I believe we're going to start with pediatrics.
Yeah, my
Obviously,
favorite.
Working with kids, what would you say is very important when you work with kids when they come to your practice or when you go to them?
Working with kids, it's all about play and how we can make something fun and engaging and keep their attention. So I use the lights not only for assessment and reassessment, but also for like a distraction. So if I want to work on something specific and have them stay in one spot, the lights has been great for that. I also do work with some kids who are nonverbal. So the lights is a way for me to interact with them as well and get them engaged. And I don't want to say their eyes light up because that sounds like a pun, but they really do when they see the lights. So that's a big plus for me, is just having that tool that is something as well portable, that because I go into clients' homes and I use them in the clinic, that I can take it with me and have one piece of equipment that I can use for so many different exercises, and have the kids involved, as well as, you know, choosing the color of the lights or setting up the app and picking, you know, how long they want it to run for. So having them involved with setup as well is huge for them.
Well, why don't we see what that looks like? Yeah, can you explain us what it is that we see here? Well, obviously we see a kid using the
The impact, yeah.
Lights, but what is the kid doing and why is the kid doing it?
So this is something I would work on with doing some single leg standing, and obviously the video will loop back, so we'll get another chance to look at it, but making it harder here on a BOSU. So I might use this with some of my toe walkers as well as some of my ankle rehab clients or low tone kiddos here, just using some balance. So if you've got a balance beam in your clinic, or you're just using a line of tape on the floor to create a balance beam and having them kind of reach outside their base of support with their feet to deactivate the lights. You could also assign a color to your left foot or right foot, making it harder and having them to cross their foot over to the other side. Here, working on some tall kneeling. So if a kiddo has weak glutes or weak trunk control, and I really want them up in that tall kneeling position and moving laterally, obviously getting them to reach up and move down, and you can make that harder. This little guy just working on some core stability in a fun way. But if you don't have something like a bouncer, or even older kiddo, you can use a scooter board. If you've got somebody in a wheelchair, they could be rolling towards the lights on the floor. It's a very simple setup, just spreading the lights out on the floor, and you can set it to random. Again, you can change the color. So it could be, you know, you're going to turn this one off with your hand. This color is going to be your foot. So just assigning it like that. Going back to this little guy, so some single leg standing and balance. So we've made it really hard by putting the lights up on a crash mat. You could obviously start this on the floor as your preliminary exercise and then move to an unstable surface like this.
Did we mention the durability already? Because he was really
he was really hammering
on those lights.
Yeah. And I find that a lot of the time with pediatrics, if I get the kids to carry the lights where we're setting them up, the parents are kind of like, oh, don't drop it. And I'll just drop it and be like, no, it's fine. Like nothing's going to break these lights. Don't worry about it. So they jump on them. They do all kinds of things, or they'll try and smack it really hard. But as you can see, yeah, they're super durable.
All right. Thank you, obviously.
You're welcome.
Let's go to the next set of patients, if you will, orthopedic rehab.
Yeah, so
go ahead. No, go ahead.
Just your general orthopedic clients. So, you know, your hips, your knees, your shoulders. For this group, we just chose one video for shoulder rehab. And so we'll show you the setup, and I'll talk a little bit about how you could change this up, or how you might use the lights in a different way. So if we were working on some shoulder strength right here, you can see that we've added a weighted ball to the exercise to make it a bit more difficult. And she's working on some internal rotation, external rotation, abduction, flexion, and just being able to move the lights up and down on those poles. You could increase the range of motion needed to turn off, deactivate the lights. As well, if you move the poles further away and added kind of a reaching component. So we get that trunk involved as well. And I already mentioned the weighted ball. So this could be something that you might start with just doing a 30-second drill until they build up their muscular endurance. And then as they're more comfortable and they've got more strength, more endurance, you could say, okay, we're going to do this for a minute now and just see how you do. And then you can compare it as well to their unaffected side.
Because you say compare, because obviously the data that you get from this is obviously your average reaction time, your total time, and the number of deactivations that you do, let's say within 30 seconds, like you mentioned. Right. Would you be, let's say that this patient comes in next week again, would you then try to beat the score, if you will? Or is it more so that the patient is moving and deactivating the lights in general?
It could be either or. So if you're working on like how fast they're doing it, how quick they're doing it, maybe somebody who is at the end of their recovery, you could see if they could beat their score. And you're also looking for the fluidity of the movement and how their shoulder is moving, for example. But you could also be using it for, you know, your assessment and reassessment piece. So you're looking at that and you've got that raw data to actually chart. To see how they did. They could also see how they felt doing it. Did they have any pain when they were doing it? And so the next time you might move the lights a little bit and say, you know, now we've moved them up and a foot or down a foot, and seeing what their available range of motion to work with is within the lights.
Oh, wow. I like that. All right. On to the next video. So now we're going to discuss post-surgical rehab. So correct me if I'm wrong, somebody has surgery. And
Yes.
then they're going to go into rehab to, yeah, well, maybe you can tell us a little bit about
Yes.
it.
So post-surgery, so this could be really any of your total hip or knees, shoulders, as well as things like ACL or amputees. The two videos we have, one is ACL rehab, one is of an amputee using the lights. But really, when I talk about the post-surgical rehab, what I like is that you can use the lights right after surgery at bedside. If you've got somebody that can't get out of bed yet, or they're sitting on the side of their bed and they're working on some weight shifting, some reaching before they're standing, or, you know, just some pre-gait activities, you can bring the lights to them. They're so portable in that way that whether you're taking a client down to the gym or you're meeting them in their hospital room, the lights, you just bring them right to them. It's not a big, heavy piece of equipment. As physios, we're used to when we buy a piece of equipment, it's large, it's heavy, you can't typically move it around. So a huge plus is that a client who's had surgery might be using the lights right from bedside all the way to, you know, the gym in the setting that they're working into, if you're visiting them at home later on, so they can use them right through. And then you can do your assessment and reassessment piece all the way through to show them kind of how far that they've come. So I think the first video is ACL. Yes. So getting closer to return to sport with this person. So I might have used the lights previously for some single leg standing, some just balance and reaching, but now we're using them with the triple hop test. So I'm sure a lot of you know the triple hop test is a test that physical therapists would use to help them for, is this client or athlete ready to return to sport? So we're measuring how far can they do 3 consecutive hops compared to their unoperated leg. By using the lights within this test, you're creating an aspect of being able to also measure their processing. So he's reacting to that purple light that's on the tripod and then jumping. So we're not just measuring, are they physically ready to return to sport? Because we all know that you also have to be mentally ready to prevent a re-injury. So by adding this component of, okay, now he has to react before he moves. And what is that reaction time looking like? You're getting that piece of data as well for how mentally prepared are they, how sharp are they scanning their environment, are they, you know, aware, are they looking for that to help you make those decisions in terms of returning to sport.
I like it that you say mentally prepared, because I'll never forget, I once was at a soccer team in Italy, one of the big teams over there, and they said, I asked them the question, like, who decides when a player is ready to go back into play after an injury? Right. And they said the medical team always decides, except when there's a final, maybe, but when it's too important, which is interesting, obviously. But and they said the very last task that we do is to have the player look at the moment when he got injured and put electrodes on its body to measure like what that does to his body, like if his heart rate goes up, because if it does, he might not be mentally prepared to go into play again. And yeah, this is a good way to see how fast somebody will actually respond to the light.
Yes, for sure. And you're getting 2 pieces of information at once. You're getting your information from the triple hop test, the physical distance, but you're also getting that reaction time. So it's the same drill that you're doing or the same setup, but you're getting more information.
Okay, let's go to the next video. What do we see here?
So this is somebody who's obviously an amputee, and we're using the lights on the floor as well as on the tripod. So you're getting some transitions, getting down nice and low, working on some of that balance and single leg stance. But you can imagine if this gentleman had just had his amputation, how you could use the lights as well at the bedside. So if you were just sitting the side of the bed, getting him to work on that balance, because now with an amputation, everything is shifted, your center of gravity, your limb awareness, your proprioception. So using that, something like this at the bedside, and then once you start standing, you know, some pre-gait, some gait activities to something as he's progressed all the way to this, where he's able to, you know, easily jump around and get to lights, and now working on more agility training, coordination, reaction time types of stuff. So just showing the kind of versatility throughout your recovery with the lights.
And mind you, people, you don't have to touch the lights. And the good thing is that when you get the data from it, and if you do it again tomorrow or the week after, and you see that you're improving, that's what motivates you. That's why we always say move, measure, motivate. First you move, then you measure, and then it motivates you to do it again tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So now we're going to go to neuro rehab. This is something more severe, maybe.
Okay, so yeah, your neuro rehab, it encompasses so many different diagnoses. So this could be your ABI, your stroke, Parkinson's, MS, ataxia, cerebral palsy, and again, using this from kind of the onset all the way through recovery or through their progress. The nice thing about the lights here is definitely that proximity setting. So the fact that you don't have to touch it to turn it off is huge in this population, because sometimes when we're working on controlling a movement, you don't want them to have to hit it or touch it with their foot, like smack it, because it will shift them too far and they will lose their balance. So the fact that you can control that proximity and do 10 centimeters away or 80 centimeters away, that's a big bonus for using this equipment with this population for sure.
Okay, let's see.
Yeah, so working with somebody with ataxia, for example, having the lights up on a board for reaching, on the floor for some single leg balance, in sitting as well, just showing that, you know, if somebody is wheelchair bound or they're not stable enough on their feet to use the lights, they still get to use them. Some reaching here. And the other thing is that the therapist now is kind of free to guard the patient. And that's huge for me. I've worked with a lot of neuro population where I've had to be the target and the guard and another set of eyes watching, and you don't always have an assistant to do those things. So you're kind of like, you feel like an octopus. But if you've got the lights already set up for you, now your focus is fully on the patient, making sure, you know, you're guarding them, you're cueing them up, like with your hands. You can watch the quality of their movement so that you can record it after. And then you're also getting that raw data. So before, when I worked in the hospital, we would have them reaching, for example, for a pylon or a sticker on the wall, but how do you capture that in your charting? Like they hit the pylon 5 times. That's not great objective data that you can use for reassessment. So if you've got the lights and, you know, this was the setup, they were able to reach 5 lights in this amount of time, or they did better on their left side compared to the right seen by this, you know, now we can capture actual data that we can then use for charting and for assessment, reassessment, or to share with the medical team, anything like that. So that's super important.
Okay, well, thank you very much for sharing that.
And then, yeah, the pediatric population, also cerebral palsy or any of those other neurological diagnoses, the same thing about being able to now, that therapist sitting behind the child, guard them and not having to hold up any targets for them. And here, the child working just on some lateral movements, left to right, turning off the light, scanning, you know, just getting them to kind of pay attention and move towards that light. And then here, making it a little bit harder. So now we've got lights at the side, but we've also got the lights in front. So she's working on some, you know, forward flexion of that trunk and then coming back to midline and looking for the other light, and she's engaged, and we can, you know, measure all of that.
And I think well, obviously there's a proximity sensor, but I think I mentioned it in the beginning. So far, the drills that you've seen, this is just on random. So you don't need to have skills for, how do I say that, digital skills, if you will.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about the software, because the lights will just go on randomly on a quick start.
Yes.
As you see, one light can go on twice in a row. So it's really plug and play, if you will, or plug in exercise.
I'm definitely not super techie at all. So the fact that I can operate these lights with ease, and actually some of my 5-year-old clients, they'll look at the app and they'll set it up themselves, or they'll look for their program that I have saved, and they'll pick their colors. They kind of scroll through, okay, I'm going to do it for a minute, or I'll shout it out, and they'll program it themselves. So, you know, from kids, or if you have a therapy assistant working with you, if you're running a group program and you have a volunteer working working with you. Anybody could, you know, set up and use the lights, especially if you've got pre-programmed things in the app as well. If you're away and you have a therapist covering for you and you say, you know, let them warm up with this program, it's super simple. So it kind of takes the thinking about the setup of the lights totally out of it with the ease of the use of the app, really.
Well, that's great. And obviously, if you guys do have questions on the program, on how to program certain protocols, feel free to either reach out. And at the end, obviously, our email address and our social media handles will be up there. So always feel free to reach out, and we're always more than happy to think with you on how to best utilize FITLIGHT. All right, on to the next part, athletic rehab.
Right, athletic rehab. So this could be anything from your recreational athletes, you know, your kids just playing soccer, or your high-level athletes. I work with a lot of high-level athletes in the clinic as well as in the community, and your professional athletes as well. So you might be treating kind of any of those athletes, but it's great for your sprains, your strains, your tears. You might have post-ops, your ACLs, your I've seen a couple athletes with patellar fractures, concussions. So really just a great tool for all athletes, and especially the ability to move the lights wherever you want. If you're working with volleyball and you've got jumping, you can put them up on the wall. If you're, you know, you've got somebody, you'll see in some of the videos how you could utilize the lights in this population. So somebody like this, it could be an ankle sprain, could be a knee injury. And, you know, you could start this drill on the floor and then move to a Dynadisc as they get better. And the lights are left foot blue, I believe, right hand red, and I think it's left hand green. So now we're adding that cognitive component that they have to process. Okay, which limb do I have to use to deactivate the light? Moving using your Bosu ball with the lights, doing a simple compass drill. This could be a groin injury, and then, you know, making it even harder. So if you've pictured, if it was the same injury and you went from the girl doing the ankle one to the, you know, the groin stretch to the jumping, you've used the lights in 3 different ways, and it could be with the same athlete as they progress through their rehab program, really. And like I said, this, you could have started on the floor without the disc. You could have started the lights on the floor, but they put them up on the foam rollers to make it more challenging. So they've got to lift that leg higher to deactivate. And yeah, that proximity setting there is key as well. Yeah.
Looks so difficult.
Yeah. Yeah, this would be more at the, like, closer to the return to sport phase. And here I like this because there's some planning, there's some motor planning going on. You know, which route are you going to get to be able to reach the light that turns on with that gentleman who was jumping.
All right, and I think the next video is going to be soccer orientated.
Okay. Right.
I believe we had, or I know we had this video in our last webinar when we were talking about FITLIGHT and soccer. But why would this also be ideal for, let's say, rehab?
Yeah, so a lot of therapists, I mean, they do work with athletes and work with teams. I have a colleague actually who uses the lights, and she is in charge of a lot of the assessment and reassessment of the soccer players on the team, not just from injury, but just in general. So, you know, the ability to, like this gentleman, using the lights with his head, with his arms, with his legs, kind of getting a full body workout. This is great for return to sport. Just doing more sport specific drills. So after they've got their complete, you know, range of motion, their strength is back, everything else kind of looks good. We want to move into that more sport specific drill, and how can we mimic that in a setting using the lights. So these are just kind of great examples of that. And the other thing I like is that, you know, we show that you could use the lights outside or inside. And because I'm a home therapist, I do use the lights, so I might take it to a kid's backyard or the driveway and set something up, or take it inside the house. So having the ability to do that is key as well.
All right, great. And
oh yes, so
what do we see here? Wow, this looks very difficult.
Yeah, so just working on some, you know, plyometrics, reaction time, and he's got the TheraBand kind of around his legs to to add a strengthening component. But why I like this drill is that it's just Velcro on the wall and 2 lights. It's such a simple setup that, you know, you could have the lights up there already, or your client can come in if they're quite independent, just say, you know, you're going to go warm up with plyometrics 1, and they find it in the app. They can start it, do it themselves. And then you can come over and change it or progress it or kind of watch how they're doing it. But this is something that's so simple that they can run on their own. And you can see that you can do quite a bit with the 2 lights.
And this is, by the way, Andre, one of our brand ambassadors, who makes it look easy, but I think if I would try this, I would not execute it the way he does. It's unbelievable. And does he also have a strength band, or how do you call it?
Yeah, he has a TheraBand, yeah, around his thighs, yeah.
Unbelievable. All right. All right, I believe we're arrived at the last part, geriatrics. We saw kids in the beginning. They love working with the lights. What about the elder population?
Geriatrics, yeah, so they love working with the lights too. It's interesting, it's motivating. They can work together as a group. So a lot of the times with geriatric programs, you might be doing group therapy just so that they can get that social aspect as well. Might be using it in a fall prevention class. You know, with the aging population, we have things like osteoporosis or cardiovascular issues, pulmonary issues like clients with COPD. Then you also might get the neuro population in there with your stroke and your Parkinson's and those kind of diseases. And we know that this population's at higher risk for, you know, falls because of weakness and decreased reaction time, poor balance. They might have had a hospital stint and now they need to get some strength back. So you could use the lights in that purpose as well. And I believe, yeah, the first video is using the lights with the tug test. So the tug test being, you know, a test that we look at for lower extremity function, balance, mobility, whether or not somebody might benefit from the use of a gait aid. Typically,
what does TUC stand for? Maybe the people that are not a physical therapist, can you explain what TUC stands for?
Oh, you put me on the spot. I don't remember. We just call it the tug test.
It's something with timed
up and go.
Timed up and go. Yes, thank you.
Don't do that. The timed up and go. Yeah. So they have the markers on the floor, and before they would get up, you would time them to get to the endpoint and come back and sit down.
Okay.
And I think it's 15 seconds is kind of the marker. And then if they're, you know, above or below, you're determining maybe can they benefit from a mobility aid. And this is a test that you would do for assessment and then reassessment later. So the ability to use the lights now with this test, you're not having to time them. As a therapist that you're watching the tug test, you want to be able to look at their gait. What is their step length, step width like? Do they have good dorsiflexion so they're not tripping? What does their balance look like? So you're already trying to eye all those things and guard them in case they're at risk for falling over. You don't want to now have to worry about your stopwatch and timing them at the same time, because if, let's say, you didn't hit your stopwatch or you missed it, you might have to make them do it again. And this is not a test that you want somebody in this population doing over and over and over, because number one, they'll get tired. And number two, it's not going to be accurate representation of how they did it. And they might get frustrated. The other thing, yeah. And the other thing is like using the lights as red, yellow, green, and green meaning get up and go. You're simulating what they might see in the community, in the environment. So them having to, you know, watch the crosswalk light change and then attend to it and, you know, start moving. It's a great way to kind of get them ready if they're getting ready to get back out into the community and do what they would normally do.
All right. I think we have another video for geriatrics.
Oh yeah, so he's using the impact settings, punching the lights, you can see. This would be a great warm up just to get heart rate up, do a little bit of upper extremity moving. And then you could progress with the same gentleman here to something like this, where now he's reaching up out of his base of support. He has to look on the floor, he's scanning using his legs. So kind of a full body workout now with the lights, with a simple setup of just 4 lights. And here I love it because they're working together. So that social aspect, having them, you know, kind of be part of a team and everybody has their specific light. You could change it so everybody had their specific color and they'd have to get up and move a little bit more. Also, the fact that they're seated, they don't have to be standing for this. These guys have different body parts they have to use it with. And here's a little like healthy competition between seniors. And then this gentleman just kind of working on his spatial awareness and scanning peripheral vision for the lights.
Let's see if we can do that last part, because again, I like the social aspect.
Yeah. It's great for recreation.
Well, I once had a client that told me when they had a common table, or how do you say that, table in a common area? That's what I should say. And they had lights on there just for maybe with two different colors, and one group would be team A and team B, let's say team blue and team yellow. And whenever a light would go on, they would start talking like, oh, now you have to hit it. Now you have to hit it. Yeah.
Yeah, we actually, I was lucky enough to be part of an outpatient stroke rehab program, and part of the warm up, and most people, I would say 80% were wheelchair bound. So part of the warm up was really, you know, we'd have the lights on the floor or in their lap, and everybody would just talk about, you know, what they did on the weekend and do the lights at the same time before we moved into using the lights more in like the parallel bars or at a board. But it was our way to kind of warm up with using the lights with everybody in that social kind of atmosphere. And it was really nice to see.
All right, great. Well, thank you very much, Lindsay. Let's do a quick recap. We saw a lot of different ways on utilizing the lights. Like we said in the beginning, the majority of the exercises was just random, or just where the lights will go on randomly for a certain amount of time or a certain amount of hits, whatever you prefer, with different colors. But that doesn't mean that you can't change the settings. Like you already said, like when the kids come in, they pick their own colors. But we also saw some exercises where certain colors meant using your right hand, your left hand, your right foot, your left foot, etc. And I wanted to show the audience real quick on how to actually modify those settings. So again, we see here the main menu. We're going to go to Quick Start. We select our lights, and then at the right top, let me go back. And then at the right top, you see the 3 dots on how to modify the actual settings for this exercise. And here you see you can change the number of hits, the run time, so the total time, the colors that you want to work with, how do you want to deactivate the lights, so the sensors, the LED mode. Do you want both LED rings on, because each light has 2 rings of LEDs, the outer ring, the center, so you can program it that way that it will be a full light, means both rings will go on, just the center or just the outer ring. Especially, for example, you train your peripheral vision if you have lights spread out on the wall in front of you. If you just have the center on, it will be more difficult to see, so you have to focus harder. All right. We saw some accessories today. What are your favorites to use, Lindsay?
Definitely, I would say the suction cups, because they work really well on the walls as well as the mirrors or windows. So for height, for easy changing of the height, then I use the suction cups quite a bit. The FITLIGHT clips as well, because we just have the regular PVC pulls. So we clip them onto that. So if I want to make like a frame and take it out into the floor space, I've got that.
Like the patient you saw with the shoulder mobility.
Yeah,
correct?
exactly. And the magnet clips I actually use too we have a big whiteboard. So sometimes I'll use those, or I'll use them on the parallel bars as well.
Okay, mind you, the whiteboard is a good idea. It needs to be a whiteboard, obviously, that is magnetic. Not all whiteboards are magnetic, and I believe that there's also different grades of how strong the whiteboard would be. So please check before you buy one of the magnets. We also see here a wall mount, obviously. It allows you to drill that into the wall so you can clip on the lights to the wall mount to have a setup that's always the same, which obviously is very important if you want to collect data. If you, for example, want to do baseline testing and compare your data. The light bases on the left bottom, they're a great way to make the ground setup more stable. If you want to reach for a light with your, let's say your foot, it'll be more stable, less likely for the light to slide away. The suction cups we already saw, and the tripod is a great way to elevate the light, especially if you want to maybe move past the light, if you want to use that motion sensor. And I believe we have one last video with the kits that we saw in the very first one that shows exactly on the different accessories, how to use them.
So you've got the suction cups on the mirror, you've got the light bases on the floor, the tripod with the light bases again. So just working on some, and then the Bose with the suction cup. So a lot of the stuff you already probably have, you can incorporate with the lights, which is nice. And there I am free to kind of guard her, so I'm not holding up any targets for her. Using it with a simple step, or if you've got stairs, and then the tripod there at the side. And these are the magnets on the whiteboard that I was talking about. And he's actually up on a therapy ball, so working on some core and some reaching.
Okay, well, I think we actually have a video that, a question that came in.
Okay.
Eefje Opbroek, sounds very Dutch. I'm Dutch, so mind me that I pronounce it that way. She says, hi, I have a question about the Neuro Rehab. I'm curious how FITLIGHTS are working in your brain when you had a stroke in the past. Does training with FITLIGHTS make new nerves? And do we know what the effect is on it for that kind of patients, for example, for mobility? Okay.
In terms of whether or not the FITLIGHTS are creating new nerves, I can't speak to that. Unfortunately, that's a little bit out of my realm, and I don't typically work with these clients as much anymore because I'm in pediatrics. But in terms of mobility improvements, for sure, especially a lot of the time with strokes, we've got hemi neglect. So, you know, they're not attending to one side. So getting the lights on that side and getting them really to attend to that side and to cross midline, getting some extra trunk rotation to help in general with their mobility, as well with, you know, sit and reach a lot with the lights, getting them to get ready to stand. And then once they're standing, working on balance and, you know, reaching and stepping out of their base of support, shifting their weight, standing by, you know, having two lights on the floor. So we're definitely working on kind of mobility, but as well as strength, proprioception, range of motion, reaction time, attending to the lights, so scanning their environment as well to look for the next light. So with that population, that's where I see the benefits. But the nerve question is an interesting one, and so hopefully FITLIGHT can figure that out for you.
Well, maybe if I may, we did the second webinar that we did, and it's still on our YouTube channel, Eefje. If you will, you can check that out, where our neuroscientist Louisa Nicola talks about using the lights and what we call the science behind the lights. So it's a quick overview of actually what happens inside your brain when you see, let's say, a ball coming towards you, or what happens if you react to a light. It definitely allows you to measure your progress. So if you have an injury, it doesn't matter if it's a brain injury or a physical injury, well, I guess it's both physical, but or let's say knee injury, it does allow you to measure your improvement. So if you're becoming faster at what you're doing, and that way see if you're improving with your rehab. All right, I believe that's it. And that is all for the questions. So what we'll do, well, first of all, Lindsay, thank you very much for joining us today. And thank you for sharing your knowledge and how you use the lights with different types of patients.
Thank you for having me.
Well, you're very welcome. Like I said, this is being recorded, so it will be online within a week on our YouTube channel. And feel free, if you have any questions, to reach out to us. You can follow us online obviously on our website, FITLIGHTtraining.com, or at FITLIGHT Training on Instagram and Facebook. I have a personal FITLIGHT account as well on Instagram, Rob FITLIGHT. Feel free to reach out to Lindsay and follow her on Instagram at Ready Set Physio, or go to our website, readysetphysio.com. If you have any questions and you can't wait until the questionnaire is being sent out, you can email us at info@fitlighttraining.com, and we will make sure that when we send the recap, where we're going to per video show like this is what has been trained here, this is what the lights do for you, etc., etc. We'll give a link to each individual video as well, so you can look back at it, and this whole recording will be on our YouTube channel. All right, that's it. Again, thank you so much, Lindsay, for joining us today.
Yeah.
And if you guys have any ideas for another webinar, feel free to let us know, and hopefully we'll talk to you guys soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.